Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth and Logos means a study or science. Sathology means a study of truth or science of truth. Mythology is an exact antonym because the word myth in Sanskrit is a root word for fake, lie, imagination. And mythology means a study or science of myth. So, in this show today, we have a very, very prominent guest, one joining from Birmingham and another one joining from India. And both of them are researchers and they have done their own research. Research means that personal expertise in this area. Unfortunately, in this today, important topics are left to people with a professional mindset. And in historically speaking, the biggest inventions or researches have been done by people who had taste in that subject and they could do proper justice to it. So, so we have a special personality today joining from Birmingham. Without delay, let us welcome him. He's a filmo. He makes films. He has a very famous unit called Saraswati Films. He is an author. He is an astrologer, and he is a medical doctor. So, like all of them combined into one. And then during the day, he takes care of people's bodies or health. And in the evening, he does his passion serving the ancient histories of the world. So, without delay, let us welcome Dr. Manish Pandit and his team member, Sri Shivansh Mehrotra.
Jai Shri Ram, Aditya ji, it is always a pleasure to be on your show. And I believe our last interaction caused quite a, a nice, it is always nice to have a debate anyway. When people feel as if their feathers are ruffled, then that usually means that that's not a bad thing you've said, and there was no, as you know very well, we never go into personalities and personal attacks and all that. We are purely based on the astronomy, on the Shabda Pramana of Vyasa, and on just on the basics of astronomy. And there are there are two separate topics we can talk about today. The first, I just want to make a very short point on a question which was asked on YouTube on the channel, which somebody said, well, Pandit is continuously pointing out Balrama's pilgrimage as if, Balrama's pilgrimage is the one reference which is really causing a problem to all astronomers. So, why don't we omit it? That was one thing. And the other thing is said, how can just one Balrama's pilgrimage prove everything wrong, or everything correct? Because in 3067 BC, we are proving Balrama's pilgrimage perfectly by the nakshatras, by the tithis. I have not yet gone into the tithis, and maybe we'll do it some other day. But I want to show what happens when that Balrama's pilgrimage goes wrong. People are thinking it is a very small, chota mota, ittu sa, बहुत प्यारा सा, fluffy little blunder, which is like we can ignore it, I mean, it's like, why it doesn't make any difference. And I just want to point out an analogy. In medicine, if you give, instead of 10 milligrams of morphine to somebody who is habituated with morphine, if you give 100, you're just adding 1 0 really, but it is enough to kill that person. you know this is the whole problem. The preciseness of things matters a lot, no matter whether you're in history or whether you're in medicine or whether you're somewhere else. So here, that thing is enough to kill the theory of Mahabharata for numerous astronomy daters. And let me I'm just going to share the screen and point out why and how it occurs. And then we'll go to Gautam Buddha, which is also very, very connected. So let me come back to the start. So we are talking about Balrama's pilgrimage eliminating the dates. And which are those dates? We pointed out in the last thing why that is wrong. That is reversing the nakshatras. And those are 5561 BC, 3163 BC, 3143 BC, 1793 BC. They are completely eliminated from being dates of the Mahabharata war. And a little while ago, we had, after your last show, we put out that particular video. And on the comment section, somebody said, small mistake. It's a small error. Why should you're making too much song and dance about it. And let me show you what is the song and dance. So this is what the problem is, that if the theory does not prove the start point as a Pushya or does not prove the end point as a Shravana, as per the Shabda Pramana, meaning the proof given in the verse of Vedvyasa. So suppose somebody says it is a scribal error, somebody has made a mistake while writing it down or something like that, then of course, then you can say that about any verse of the Mahabharata. That means there will be no more Mahabharata astronomy left. So we have to take the verses as they are, number one. And what happens? So how come 5 references of Balrama's pilgrimage can eliminate or prove a date? And what happens? Let me show you. Because the moon phases for the entire set of centuries, because centuries, not even the year actually. I used to say it's only wrong for a year, but it's a moon phase for centuries. It becomes wrong with the reversal of nakshatra over 42 days. For example, today is Mula Nakshatra, and if I say that this Mula Nakshatra is on the opposite side of the zodiac, and I say it is Rohini Nakshatra, then I am not just making a mistake for today. I am making a mistake which, if that is taken as Rohini Nakshatra, then it goes back for centuries and it becomes a problem. So this is number one. The war timeline, which depends on the nakshatra for the last day of the war, which is, it has to be Shravana, then that will become wrong. Then the pilgrimage timeline, which depends on the nakshatra for the last day of the pilgrimage, which also should be Shravana, that also becomes wrong. So now you're starting to see that one blunder, what it does. The Bhishma Moksha timeline, which depends on the nakshatra for the last day of the pilgrimage, plus the war, and it must always be Shravana, that also becomes wrong. And then the mission of peace timeline estimation fails, as the first day of the Balrama's pilgrimage must come after that. Additional 11 references will also fail. So now you're beginning to realize it is not a small mistake. It is a blunder of catastrophic proportions. It is a torpedo which will sink the boat or the ship of the theory of the Mahabharata for whoever it is. Right. Why is it so important? Because it is the only Shabda Pramana. Balrama's pilgrimage verses are the only Shabda Pramana for fixing the nakshatra for the last day of the Mahabharata war. And that has to coincide with the last day of the pilgrimage, which is Shravana Nakshatra. By Anumana or inference, it then fixes the nakshatra for the first day of the war by the reverse counting, that is Mrigashira. So now you are starting to see war timeline, pilgrimage timeline, Bhishma Moksha timeline, mission of peace timeline. There are only 4 timelines in the Mahabharata. All 4 are debunked. They are completely finished. If you change that nakshatra for the last day of the war, which must be a Shravana nakshatra, then you cause catastrophe. By Anumana, that Shravana nakshatra last day fixes the Bhishma Moksha timeline, which must start in the war timeline. And that is related to the 58-day and 56-day timeline verses. So you can start to imagine what is happening to those timelines. It ensures that Bhishma Moksha can only occur in Magha Masa. It cannot occur in Falguna, which is why many people have made the mistake, the blunder with the millennium of the war, which is 5561. They say, for example, that reason is because you have taken that particular thing in Falguna and not in Magha. And that mistake is causing 2500 year mistake, because that Mahabharata can never cross 3K BCE. It messes up the moon phases for centuries by reversing the nakshatra count from Shravana to Pushya. It disregards the Jyotish tradition of India, which says Pushya is the most important star nakshatra for starting any task except marriage. Even today, you go onto Twitter, you type in, for example, you can type in at Astro Amigo plus Pushya, and you will find that nakshatras of Pushya are given by astrologers in India days in advance. They will tell you this day it is going to be Pushya, do all your work, start all your work from that day. So, what we are doing, we are disregarding that tradition. So, that is very, very important. And let me just, actually, it will be easier if I just play that slideshow. So, Pushya, basically, we are disregarding. If we disregard, then that happens. Now, Pushya is the most auspicious star of Hindu Jyotish. It is the most auspicious star of Hindu Jyotish. There are full page advertisements in the newspapers in India even today. To buy a car on this day, it is a Guru Pushya. Buy a house, it is a Guru Pushya. Start a good task, it is a Pushya. It is a Ravi Pushya. Go and start this Anushtana. Those sort of things. It is the most auspicious star of Hindu Jyotish. Balram would have known that. How auspicious, how important that Pushya Nakshatra is. How important. It is taken as the Janma Nakshatra of India. 15th August 1947 at midnight is a Pushya Nakshatra. It is not a Shravana Nakshatra. You understand? Why did they not choose Shravana Nakshatra for India's Janma Nakshatra? Is the same reason why Balrama would never start on a Shravana Nakshatra. He can only start on a Pushya Nakshatra. And this syncs theory after theory. It syncs 4 theories just completely just like that. You don't even need to look at anything else because you've now got 4 humongous blunders of the war timeline, pilgrimage timeline, mission of peace timeline, Bhishma Moksha timeline. They're all going to be wrong. No need to look further. Bhishma Moksha is wrong because you started the war wrong. You see, you ended it wrong. Your pilgrimage timeline is wrong. So your pilgrimage start is wrong. I mean, everything will become disrupted if you flip the nakshatras. So when you see that the total internal astronomy of a date, which says that it will change the start date of pilgrimage from Pushya to Shravana, you know it is going to be completely wrong. It is not a small minor mistake. It is catastrophic to the theory. It finishes the theory completely. That is the end of that theory, and you can throw it in the dustbin of history, right? That is what is basically happening. You're telling Usain Bolt to run from the finish line to the start line. You're telling all the other contestants you run in the opposite direction. That is what you are basically doing. You are either removing or flipping start or finish point. And that is what it is. 5561 BC, 3163 BC, 1793 BC, and 3143 BC, all 4 are making that huge catastrophic blunder. I don't know why they have made it, but they are proudly saying also, everybody is saying in their thesis that this is what we have done. Well, it is against the Shabda Pramana of Vyasa, it is against the Jyotish tradition of India. Simple as that. So, end of the whole thing. So, which dates are wrong? 5561 BC, 3163 BC. Now, mind you, 3163 BC is epigraphic date anyway. It is not astronomy based. So, that's fine. I mean, epigraphy, can be wrong, it can change, 100 years here and there is not such a big thing. 3143 BC and 1793 BC, these are the things which are there. So, the only one date really proves Balrama's pilgrimage, which is 3067 BC. That is the only date. And it is basically because you are saying it's basically like a rare herb, right? That rare herb is the only one which can cause a particular disease to go away, right? Or you're saying this particular medicine is responsible for curing this particular disease. Other medicine is not going to do it. Very similarly, Balrama's pilgrimage is very important. If you can't prove it, then that's the end of that theory, and one should discard that theory. Right. So I hope that sort of clarified, Aditya ji. I hope I have clarified now why the internal astronomy is so powerful. Because Pushya Nakshatra is the most auspicious nakshatra of Hindu Jyotish. There's a tradition for it. Even today, you will find all the Panchang makers, everybody, they will all highlight. They'll say, Guru Pushya is occurring on this day. And by the way, in 3067 BC, It is a Guru Pushya when he starts for the pilgrimage. It is a Guru Pushya, not just a Pushya Nakshatra, but a Guru Pushya, which is the considered the most powerful way to start any good task. So I think that is highly important to understand, right?
Even my Panditji in San Diego, he always emphasizes, and I would like to name him because he's a regular watcher of her,
Right.
Pandit Shri Purushottam Bhattar. He regularly watches us. तो मैं उनको भेजूंगा कि आपका नाम लिया इधर. He is my favorite Pandit ji of San Diego, and everything that he advises me is Pushya Nakshatra.
Exactly. Always, except marriage, every other task is on a Pushya Nakshatra. Either it will be a Guru Pushya for activities you want, which you want to flower basically, because it is having complete blessings of Jupiter. That particular nakshatra is having the blessings of Jupiter, and it is on a Guruvar that is, double, triple, and especially in the first hour after sunrise, which is why you see even Aditya ji now, you see how this is, how catastrophic that change of nakshatras is. When you instead of going, Pushya to Shravana, you say, no, I will go Shravana to Pushya. Even India's chart, and I would like to, before we go to the Buddha session, point out one of the most important things which happened in 1947. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru asked Hardevji, the late Hardevji, one of the great astrologers of India. He was an astrologer. I mean, he's not an astronomer as such, but he used to come out with a fortnightly Vishwa Vijaya Panchang. Very famous man. Very famous man. He used to sit at the foothill of the Himalayas, and he used to in a house, and he used to prepare all these predictions, mundane predictions, and his mundane predictions were never wrong. I don't think you will find an astrologer like that in India. Certainly not me. Nobody, you will find nobody of that caliber today. And he was the person. He said, well, we are only being given a small window of I think it was a few days to fix this particular independence thing for India. What are we going to do? And he said, well, the only thing I can think of, he said, is let us have that basically as a Pushya Nakshatra. See, at least let us have a Pushya Nakshatra for the start, because everything else anyway is going to be a bit of an issue, right? And you look at the chamatkar of these events. You look at Pakistan, and you'll see Pakistan was just one day before. But that one day before was Ardra Punarvasu. You see, which is an Ardra is a war nakshatra. It is a nakshatra of war, right? And Punarvasu also, you see, the planetary positions, if you look at them, despite those planetary positions and everything, whatever it is, you see, it's literally a failed state now, Pakistan. And India could have easily gone the same way. I mean, if you go from Jyotish principles, but look at the power of that Pushya Nakshatra. So this is the power of Pushya Nakshatra, that it can cause something like this to, manifest. And this is why Jyotish should never be completely disregarded. I mean, you can disregard it for past, or whether, absolutely you have, if somebody is making you frightened with that Jyotish, then you should disregard it. But for things like this, what is the harm? I always tell people, well, Pushya Nakshatra start on Pushya, I mean, it's not going to harm you in any way. So, but this is the power of that Pushya Nakshatra. And that is the Pushya Nakshatra which Balram would have known about it. Balram ji is Haldar. He is not just somebody, this you're talking about the brother of Sri Krishna, right?
If my point is, if Pandit Hardevji should have also told Jawaharlal Nehru that Mahabharata and Ramayana is real history, तो भारत एक खोज नहीं लिखना पड़ता उनको.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. You see, unfortunately, I'm sure all of your viewers have seen my film, on this particular topic, Bharat Ek Chetna, which, a lot of people have actually screened that film, which I am very pleased that they have done it. Nehru ji, I am afraid, for all his good points, whatever he has done, he was a patriot, no doubt about it. He was a patriot. But The problem is that unfortunately, he didn't realize what damage he's going to cause by his own misconceptions. You see, misconceptions are many, and you should never be afraid to accept that, well, you made a mistake maybe at X point or Y point. It's fine, no big deal. But with him, what he has done is he has put those misconceptions, into Indian history. And that is really, I think that is a catastrophe of such crazy proportions. You can see it 70 years down the line. India is slowly becoming a brown America in some ways. And I'm afraid that is not meant as a compliment at all. So anyway.
In any way, in the anthropological classifications now, the American universities have just started calling India as a brown Caucasians.
Right, very interesting.
It's very interesting, right? It's just now we are classified as brown Caucasians. So मैं तो बोलता हूँ कि entire Europe came from us. अगर so we Aryans moved over there. It's the reverse one is true. And also Jawaharlal Nehru के वंशज अगर देखेंगे, they still call the idea of India. मतलब अभी भी ख्वाब ही देख रहे हैं.
Right. You see, that idea of India thing, actually, there were other people who had far better ideas.
Correct. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and other people would.
Rajendra Prasad. Babu Rajendra Prasad he was a phenomenal mathematics brain, Rajendra Prasad ji. And he had the blessings of Neem Karoli Baba.
Mm-hmm.
Neem Karoli Baba, one of the, considered almost as a incarnation of Hanuman, in many ways having the blessings of Hanuman, whatever you want to call it. But he had that particular blessings also. And it's rather unfortunate that Rajendra Prasad ji and Vallabhbhai Patel have been forgotten. I mean, not forgotten, but, effectively what is happening is that what they were talking about was not taken into account. And it was not actually put into practice. That is the whole problem. You look at, if that had been the case, today you wouldn't have so many of these sectarian problems, actually. Mm-hmm. Both of those people were phenomenal in that regard. Which is, anyway, it's an unfortunate thing. It happened anyway. I will go on to Gautam Buddha's Nirvana, the astronomy of Gautam Buddha's Nirvana. So without much ado, because that is very important, and you'll like this because I'm going to debunk another 5 dates using another 5-6 dates. Just I will debunk using this. Why? You see, we are going to use astronomy to have a limit for the epics also, because you can't say just like that Mahabharata is 10,000 BC, 5,000 BC. These dates have no meaning, actually. Why they have no meaning, I'm going to show you. You see, Bhishma Moksha in Magha Masa, there are 2 references like that. Maghoyam samanuprato masa punya yudhishthira. Tribhaga shesham pakshoyam shuklo bahitur marati. That particular one is there. And shukla pakshasya cha ashtamyam Magha masasya parthiva. There are 2 particular references mentioning specifically Magha. You see, Magha Masa. They are not saying Falgun Masa. So Bhishma Moksha in Magha Masa, 2 references, establishes a limit of 3200 BC beyond which the Mahabharata cannot be dated. No 5K BCE date is therefore possible. And I just showed you how that 5K BCE mistake was made. That is partly the reason why it was made. And here is just a Bhishma Nirvana. I'm showing you for the actual date. I'm showing you 3066 BCE this is. And I'm showing you this in January of 3066 BCE. And I'm showing you the verse. And can you see the verse? I just want to point out over here in red on the right side of my screen. Shukla pakshasya chashtamya maghamasasya parthiva. So Aditya, you are seeing with your own eyes, and the other verse is also like that only. Maghoyam samanuprapto. Maghoyam, right? It is not saying Falgunam samanuprapto. And this is not saying Falgunasya parthiva. This is saying Maghamasasya parthiva. Prajapate cha nakshatre madhyam prapte divakare. Prajapati ka ruled nakshatra, that is Rohini nakshatra, and it should be in the middle part of the day. Madhyam prapte divakare could mean either it is a bolt upright in the noon or that it is over there, right, in the middle part of the day. And it has to be a Shukla Paksha, it has to be Ashtami. And so all these factors are there, right? And it has to be fourth day after winter solstice, because that it is not just that it is happening on winter solstice, because on winter solstice we already know you cannot see that sun apparent movement northward is not seen until the fourth day. That is a scientific fact. We know that. There are people who are watching that in all countries. There are so many astronomers who watch that every year. So,
So
the other thing I want to
before
show.
you start off,
Yes, please.
one question I have.
Yes.
Do these names in the Indian context, like a Pushya, because people have to search now, Aldebaran, what is it? It is.
Right.
Is that available also or somewhere?
Yes. So next time I can show that
Next time, yes,
also.
please.
But I can give you some names. So Pushya is Altarf.
Altar.
Altarf. Shravana is Altair.
Altair.
Right? Shravana is Altair. And you'll find one interesting thing, that no matter what the differences we astronomers have on dating, generally speaking, the names of the nakshatras, we are all in accordance, that Rohini means Aldebaran, Jyeshtha is Antares, Pushya is Altarf, and which is in Cancer, and Altair is Shravana. So I mean, all those are. I'll bring out next time. I'll put that out. Now I want to just show one thing. Why this Kali Yuga? Now this we have not used Kali Yuga so far in Mahabharata astronomy in for our 3067 BCE dating. But the problem is that Mahabharata war must occur after Kali Yuga has started, according to 17 references at least, which is shown in chapter 1 of my book. I'm showing one reference here only, which is a really important one. And again, Shabda Pramana. I am depending on Shabda Pramana of Vyasa. And I am just going to point out in that verse, I'm going to point out the third line. So Vasudeva Vacha, Aroshano, and then the third line and fourth line of that, Praptam Kaliyugam Vidhi Praditnyam Pandavasya Cha. Praptam. Kali Yuga has already arrived.
Just to add for the viewers, Dr. Manish Pandit has made his books available free for anyone to download. And that's a great service by Dr. Pandit. Please continue, Dr. Pandit.
Thank you. Aditi ji, yes, they are available on Academia. They are also available on www.vedicastrologer.org. You will find it on PVR Narasimha Rao's website. He has been kind enough to put my books and my videos on Mahabharata dating on his website for easy download. Plus, I think there is a button in JHora software also where you can actually access all these things. Now, why is this reference so important? You know, this is Shalya Parva 59:21. When Bhimsen injures Duryodhan mortally on his thighs, Balram and Sri Krishna have a dialogue. And Sri Krishna says, well, Kali Yuga has already arrived, you see. Some people say Kali Yuga has pierced. Now, so there are two interpretations of this verse, but both are basically saying that Kali Yuga is on. They are not saying that Kali Yuga will arrive. And there are other references like that. There are 5 references of Sri Krishna telling Karna that when you will be killed, he says, by Arjuna, it will not be Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, or it will not be Dwapar. It will be Kali Yuga. Like that, there are 5 verses also. So from any way you look at it, Kali Yuga is on at the time of the Mahabharata war. Now, so any attempt at dating the Mahabharata must not ignore this verse on Kali Yuga, especially the people who are, I call them traditional astrology, astronomers, whatever you want to call them. Wonderful people, but they have all ignored these verses because this is the internal evidence of Mahabharata itself. Internal evidence of Mahabharata says Kali Yuga is on at the time when the Mahabharata war is being fought, which means, what does it mean? And here is my graphic. And what is that graphic? On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see 3137 BC, 3138 BC, 3139 BC, 3140 BC, 3143 BC, 3163 BC also included in that, 3135 BC included in that. Then will come 3102 BC. Then will come the Mahabharata war. Very important. And let me point out that there is only one date which is taking these references into account, and that is 3067 BCE. Because there you will get 3067 BC, and then you will go all the way. And Aditya ji knows this because we have discussed it previously on Sattology about the timeline from Kali Yuga to the Mahabharata war to Gautam Buddha. So Mahabharata war and Gautam Buddha is approximately 1150 years. And so Gautam Buddha Nirvana must occur after that. So any theory, so as we know, the traditional date of Kali Yuga, you go open any Panchang, they will show you Kali Yugadi. And they will say this is 5121 Kali Yuga or 5122 Kali Yuga, whatever they will say. What does that mean? What implication it has? It means 5K, 6K BC dates anyway, they're all, that's a gone case because war has to occur in Kali Yuga. Now, some people say, well, no, Kali Yuga, Kali Yuga doesn't count. We'll make our own Kali Yuga. And there are some people who have tried to make their own Kali Yuga. But I'm afraid that making their own Kali Yuga is going to fall in darkness, you see. So that is going to be a bit of a difficult task for them, as you will see. But what I'm trying to say is that the traditional so-called dates of Mahabharata war, which are those ones in yellow I have pointed out, are all wrong. War is, if that is what they are saying, that you have to take Kali Yuga into account, then I am showing you the verses by which I am proving that Mahabharata war is occurring in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga. And then you will ask me, but isn't Sri Krishna an incarnation of Dwapara? Right? And this is a very interesting question. And there is a corroboration for it that in that year of 3102 BCE, he has killed Kansa at the age of 10. That is the commemoration or corroboration which I am offering. That is why Sri Krishna at the age of 10, basically he has killed Kamsa. That is that 3102 BC date. And there you are finding that Mahabharata war, 3067 BC. And if you take it further, you will find that he will ascend to heaven 3031 BC or 3030 BC, as may be the case. You can differ on that. Therefore, the war must occur in Kali Yuga. Therefore, all 3136, 3137, 3138, 3139, 3140, 3143 BC are all wrong. They presuppose Kali Yuga at 1718 February 3102 BCE. And they take an assumption that Krishna must depart at Kali Yuga from the Srimad Bhagavatam. But Srimad Bhagavatam, if you look at that verse, and it is there on my blog, astronomyofindia.wordpress.com. Please go to that blog whenever you like. You can find it over there. I have given a full explanation for it, that the verse does not say Sri Krishna must go and then Kali Yuga will start. It says simply that the influence of Kali Yuga has been held off at bay till Sri Krishna's departure. That is what it is. And Sri Krishna himself has said his own words, which are saying that Kali Yuga war is on and Kali Yuga is there. And that is that particular shloka. So the question of this being wrong does not arise. So any theory which is saying that they are going to start the war when Kali Yuga is not on, according to their Kali Yuga, that estimation, that is going to be a problem. So that is number one, right? Now, classically, it is well known there is a gap of around 1150 years between end of Mahabharata war and Gautam Buddha. So when astronomy conclusively proves 3067 BCE to be the date of the war, and it is the only date which satisfies most, if not all, of the external internal criteria, then how can Buddha be at 483 BCE? So Buddha can never be at 483 BCE, which is what the current thinking is. So this is number one. Again, we know about that 1150 year gap between end of Mahabharata war and Gautam Buddha. So when astronomy proves, and I'm going to show you now, why 1807 BC is the date of Nirvana of Gautam Buddha, and we will show it beyond doubt. How can Mahabharata be at 5561 BC? It's impossible. Do you see now what the problem is? Because for Mahabharata war to be at 5561 BC, Gautam Buddha has to be at approximately 3500 BC. Now, let me tell you, that is a stupidity of enormous proportions. It is an impossibility. It is an impossibility. You cannot have that. So that is gone. Now, I also want to point out something else. When the lineage lists of the various mathas of Shankara prove Adi Shankaracharya at 509 BC, then how can Gautam Buddha be at 483 BC? Can Gautam Buddha came after Adi Shankaracharya? So that is there is a word which Aditya Satsangi ji will like, which I am just putting out here. It means there is some locha in the narrative being sent out by the Western Indologists. I think, is that the right word? Locha is the, I think,
Beautiful
correct
word.
word, hai na? Yeah, locha.
Thank God you didn't say loncha.
No, then it would have become Achar. And Acharji is my mentor, so I can't, I won't say that. The
That
wonderful
achar
man.
is a pickle.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So, but and Lonsa, Lonsa is also pickle, you see. But
No.
yeah, I mean, it has created, the Locha has created a Loncha, maybe we can say. So, but yes, so there is a Locha, Locha.
Obstruction.
Obstruction, exactly, exactly. Now, also I want to point out one other thing, because a lot of people have no idea about BCE and AD. I just want to say Julian calendar year is used for all dates up to 1582 October 04. After that, Gregorian calendar is used. But before that, we are using Julian calendar and we're using Julian day calculations. There is no, 0 year in that for AD and BCE. So the dates prior to year 0 are represented by negative sign. What does that mean? Let me just show you. So 3067 BC is minus 3066. 1807 BC is minus 1806. And there is no 0 year in AD and BCE system. So this also I just want to point out, because there are a lot of people who have messed up this completely. And they keep asking me, why is 3067 BC not 3068 BC or 3066 BC? I mean, they're very confused about it. Another few ground rules I want to point out, just definitions, I have just taken them. Winter solstice. What is winter solstice? It is not Makar Sankrant. This is winter solstice, Earth tilted as far away from the sun as it will be all year. Results in the shortest day of the year, meaning is the longest period of darkness. It is also the point, you see, when the sun will move northward, basically, right? Appears to move northward. In Western pagan cultures, the symbolic death and resurrection of the sun, and the sun appears to stand still for 3 days at winter solstice, right? Sa niryo gajapura dhyajike parivartaha drishtva nivrittam adityam. Yudhishthir says, Drishtva nivrittam adityam. He saw the sun being released. What was the sun released from? Drishtva nivrittam adityam pravrittam chottarayanam. Right? Pravrittam chottarayanam. What is pravrittam chottarayanam? Meaning the Uttarayana has started. So that is that 4th day only. Because to see the sun, he has to see, he said, Drishtva nivrittam adityam. I saw the sun being released. So to see the sun being released, it is never on the day of winter solstice. It is only on the 4th day thereafter. You see, it is as simple as that. So the earliest that is going to be seen is 4th day of winter solstice. So therefore, on the 4th day of winter solstice, if you really want to make this a very, very difficult exercise for all astronomers, just ask them on the 4th day past winter solstice, because that is that verse I have just told you, which is also from Anushasan Parva. And then you have to prove this. Shukla Pakshasya Chashtamyam Maghamasasya Parthiva Prajapate Cha Nakshatre Madhyam Prapte Divakare. Meaning, you must have Shukla Ashtami of Maghamasa with Rohini Nakshatra in the middle part of the day. Right? On the 4th day past winter solstice. There is only one day in past 10,000 years when that can happen. And that is 3066 BCE. This is one reference by which you can prove everything else wrong. So what I'm trying to tell you is not minor. It is a huge thing. Each reference of the Mahabharata like that is giving you an example of why all these other dates are wrong, right? Let me go to the next one. Right. Now, vernal equinox. What is vernal equinox? It's 2 moments in the year when the sun is exactly above the equator and day and night are of equal length. So either of the 2 points in the sky, the ecliptic, which is sun's annual pathway, and celestial equator intersect. And distance between winter solstice and vernal equinox, just remember this one, whoever is watching, that is 90 days. So the current understanding of Gautam Buddha's date is important. See, Western Orientalists, they came across various inscriptions, epigraphic evidence, all of which were talking Gautam Buddha dating between 2422 BC to 483 BC, never before that anyway. This is another reason why Mahabharata war can never go beyond that 3.2 KBC limit. But Western Indologists, what happened? They ignored most of them. They settled on the records just from Sri Lanka. That is how they dated Buddha to 483 BC, which is how the current thing sort of stands. And it is based on all sorts of assumptions. Identification of Santrocotus as Chandragupta, evidence of Ashok Maurya, epigraphic evidence. Ashoka's coronation is 218 years after Gautam Buddha. Like that, all these sort of things, the assumptions basically have been taken. They've been questioned by scholars for a long time. But there's nothing concrete. And archaeology also, it's all very wishy-washy at that point. So nobody really cared. Now, in 2013, an earthquake has occurred in the Orientalist world. When archaeologists have found that the temple of Lumbini had certain areas around Buddha's marker stone which were far more antiquated than they should have been. And so now suddenly you're shifting from 483 BC, you're shifting to nearly 600 BC, actually. And that is by somebody called Conyngham. But if you go to the data which this archaeologist has provided, you'll find a very interesting finding. And you will find that actually that mud which is over there and all the artifacts, whatever he has found, you see, those things are going to 1500, 1600 BCE plus or minus 300 years. Now you see what the problem is, because what is the problem here? So Aditya ji might want to come in over here. So was Lumbini known to anybody prior to discovery of Gautam Buddha's nirvana and all these things?
No.
And afterwards. So Gautam Buddha was born at a certain place called Lumbini. That's why Lumbini is known. Nobody knows of Lumbini. So Lumbini is not associated with anything else. There is nothing else over there, right? So when somebody says they have found archaeological carbon dating, radiocarbon dating of 1600 BC stuff over there in that place, what does it mean? Because what they are saying is that they are saying that there is a previous culture to that which has come and established that. This is nonsense. So Gautam Buddha is born at Lumbini. That is why Lumbini has acquired that importance. So no way that site will have 1000 years difference in radiocarbon. So that 600 BCE, whatever they are talking about, that is based on their current understanding of the world and of the astronomy, archaeology, etc., which is faulty, because the actual sample is saying 1600 BC, right? Plus or minus 300 years, by the way, right? You can go and look at it. The paper is there actually on the web. So what I'm trying to say over here is that itself should have given us a pointer that Gautam Buddha date is going to be around that 1800 BC mark. By the way, the 1800 BC, around about 1800 BC, many other people have pointed out, including Indian tradition says 1800 BC nirvana for Gautam Buddha. Now, this is therefore really important to us. because that particular archaeological evidence is really, really important, right? Is really important for us because we are saying that there is nothing else over there before Gautam Buddha was born there. That place was not important, and therefore, for it to have those sort of, previous whatever culture you are talking about, that particular thing means that there was something, that must be the time of Gautam Buddha. So this is circumstantial. I'm going to show you something better than that. Now, based on all this, can we use astronomy to fix the date of Gautam Buddha? Gautam Buddha spent the last 3 months of his life at Shravasthi. He took Mahaparinirvana at the age of 80 years. We know that. Sen Gupta, I want to point out Sen Gupta, Professor Sen Gupta, who was a fantastic scholar actually from 1940s. He took the use of the Buddhist text Samyutta Nikaya, but unfortunately he only interrogated 483 and 544 BC dates. He settled for 544 BC despite the fact there is no fit. And we'll show that both of these have no chance of a snowflake in hell of fitting the date which is provided. So let us use the Sutta 9, Chandima, that is called, and Sutta 10, which is Surya of Samyutta Nikaya. And these consist of 3 verses each and are based on when Buddha was at Shravasthi. Sutta 9 is important. It shows the moon calling out for help to the Buddha when seized by Rahu. And Buddha is said to free the moon through his compassion. The next Sutta 10 shows the sun calling out for help to the Buddha when seized by Rahu. Buddha, of course, frees the sun through his compassion. Now, what are these? So, Sutta 9, what celestial events we are talking about? It shows the Devaputra moon that is seized by Rahu, the lunar eclipse. Sutta 10, in sequence they are coming. Devaputra, sun calling out for help to Buddha when seized by Rahu, solar eclipse. So, first we are establishing it's a lunar eclipse followed by solar eclipse, number 1. But the first Devaputra to arrive is Devaputra Kashyapa. Is identified by Sen Gupta, but confirmed by us as advent of winter solstice. Kashyapa is Dhata Prajapati. And whoever wants to have a look at this can look at chapter 15. Basically, this is Dr. Narhari Achar's work, basically. It is there in chapter 15 of my book, which is available for free download. How do we transcribe these events? Now let us look at this. So previously, by the way, I made one small error on one of the slides when I first presented this. What I wanted to say is that the lunar eclipse was at a nakshatra ruled by Aryaman. So I have corrected it over here. I am showing you that the winter solstice of Prajapati is followed by a lunar eclipse at a nakshatra ruled by Aryaman, followed by a solar eclipse, and then a Vaishakha Purnima or a Vaishakha full moon. 4 events have to occur in succession. Now, people will ask, what is that Vaishakha full moon? That is well known as the Mahaparinirvana of Gautam Buddha. So, Buddha Nirvana is occurring on a Vaishakha full moon. So, these 4 events have to occur in one line, right? So, the following 13 dates are possible based on this particular sequence: winter solstice, lunar eclipse at nakshatra Aryaman, solar eclipse, and then full moon of Vaishakha. And those dates are 1807 BC, 1694 BC, 1510 BC, 1659 BC, 1250 BC, 1192 BC, 1138 BC, 1119 BC, 1062 BC, 1007 BC, 765 BC, 690 BC, and 560 BC. Note, please note that none of the currently accepted dates comes in any of those particular dates. But I'm giving you astronomy evidence for it. I'm giving you this particular sequence of events, right? And Nakshatra of Aryaman is, by the way, in that time, it is Purva Falguni. So, winter solstice followed by Purva Falguni lunar eclipse, followed by solar eclipse, followed by full moon of Vaishakha. Very difficult. Very difficult. Now, because Buddha spent the last 3 months of his life at Shravasthi, therefore, the total interval between winter solstice followed by lunar eclipse, followed by solar eclipse, followed by full moon of Vaishakha Purnima can be no longer than 90 days. No longer than 90 days, because I already told you that winter solstice to vernal equinox is 90 days. Additionally, less than 3 months between winter solstice and vernal equinox, which is just what I've just said. So just look at these events. Winter solstice, Prajapati, lunar eclipse at nakshatra ruled by Aryaman, solar eclipse, then Vaishakha full moon, then vernal equinox. How difficult it is. And this whole thing has to be 3 months, because we know he arrived at Shravasti before the winter solstice, you see. So that entire interval is anyway going to be less than 90 days. This is now you have imposed a real problem, because this is an impossible sort of sequence of events. And I showed you 13 dates, and I have not yet shown over there that the nakshatra was ruled by Aryaman in those 13 dates. Which ones are those? So I'm just going to show you what happens. So the nirvana must be prior to the vernal equinox, because the length between winter solstice and vernal equinox is also less than 90 days. And he spent 90 days of his life at Shravasti. Arrival was before winter solstice. So nirvana must be prior to the vernal equinox. Plus he has to see the Vaishak Purnima. So therefore the Vaishak Purnima is prior to the vernal equinox. It's very important. This is what I'm showing you. This is groundbreaking. Nobody else has done this exactly like this, right? So now what we have got basically is this particular graphic. Now this is a very difficult thing to achieve. The stringent criteria we are establishing is nirvana is prior to the sun reaching the vernal equinox. I have defined vernal equinox earlier. Vaishak Purnima also prior to vernal equinox. I showed you why. 2 criteria I'm giving you additional. So where will the sun be? So sun must be near Bharani Nakshatra or pass Bharani towards Kritika Nakshatra at the vernal equinox. Precession of equinoxes means that later than 1000 BC, the vernal equinox sun will be near Ashwini, around 3 degrees away, moving towards Revati Nakshatra. So the realistic limits are 1200 BC to 2200 BC. Buddha Nirvana, astronomy wise, becomes impossible later than 1000 BC. So all these 583 BC, 544 BC, 483 BC, all these are wrong, should be wrong. And the limits start imposing themselves around 1200 BC. So before that, basically, is when we are really talking about before 1200 BC. So 1800, 1600, 1500 BC, those sort of dates are possible. And the nirvana must be before the sun hits the vernal equinox. Remember that, right? So sun has to hit the vernal equinox. So it is before that. So what am I saying? So the criteria is the sun at the vernal equinox and the Vaishak Purnima moon, which must precede the vernal equinox. And does it fit the criteria for 1200 BCE is what we are talking about, right? So let me show you. Now look at the fun. Now I'm going to show you, I don't know whether viewers can see, at the red arrow, I'm showing you, actually this is a screenshot from CyberSky. You can see the sun, that yellow blob over there is the sun, and the vernal equinox is over there. Can you see a line over there just at the side which says vernal equinox? And that is at Aries. It says Aries over there. And that is on 1st of April, 1200 BC. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see Wednesday 01041200 BC. It says very clearly, right? It is also giving you a Julian date and sidereal time and all that. But this is a very classical thing, what I'm trying to show you over here. Now what I'm going to show you. Does that date later than 1200 BC fulfill the stringent requirements? Where is the Vaishak Purnima now? That is what you have to see. Can you see that the Vaishak Purnima, which is that full moon, which is at Vishakha, Vishakha being in Libra, basically, it is on 441200 BC. So that full moon, which is occurring at Vaishak Purnima, basically, what did I show you? That the vernal equinox is 0104 1200 BC. What did I show you? That the Vaishak Purnima is 3 days later, right? And what was our criteria? The criteria basically we said is that the Vaishak full moon or Purnima must precede the vernal equinox. So 1200 BC now, what is happening? The criteria is failed because the sun at vernal equinox precedes the Vaishak Purnima moon, basically, there's a 3-day gap, right? And Vaishak Purnima moon is coming later, right? Now I'm going to show you 2200 BC, same criteria. I'm applying exactly the same criteria. The sun at vernal equinox, Vaishak Purnima moon. Vaishak Purnima moon was precede that sun at vernal equinox. What about 2200 BC? We'll just have a look. And now you can see I'm showing you again the red arrow, Vaishak Purnima 21/3/2200 BCE. I'm showing you the full moon you are seeing over there. And you can check this on Cyber Sky if you like. You can check it on Redshift. They're all showing exactly the same thing. Bar 2-3 hours here and there. Okay. So exactly the same thing I'm showing you. This is at approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon, this particular thing. And you can see it on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see all that thing over there. Tuesday, 21/03/2200 BCE. This is the Vaishak Purnima. And I want to show you the vernal equinox. And note that the sun at the vernal equinox is later, right? And that is 8th of April of 2200 BCE. Can you see that there is an arrow, red arrow, and then there is a vernal equinox, and it is showing this very clearly. So just to prove, just to recap, Vaishak Purnima here is arriving before the sun arrives at the vernal equinox. The yellow big dot is basically that of the sun at the vernal equinox, right? And you can see, by the way, the sun, where it has moved, it is no longer at Aries. It is moving towards that Taurus. This is all highly important. I mean, I won't bore people with the actual, further astronomy of this, but I'm giving you some very basic things. So the criteria is passed in 2200 BC. Clearly, before 1200 BC, it is an impossibility. From 1200 to 2200 BC, there is a possibility that this criteria will be fulfilled. Now, I'm just showing you this to give you an idea about how we can go about it. We are not using this specifically. We are going for each of those 13 dates. And so, for example, 999 BCE, if you want to take, you'll see very clearly that the sun at the vernal equinox will precede the Purnima. Can you see over here on the left-hand side, 31st, it says, of March, vernal equinox, and that will precede the Purnima, basically, right? So there is a problem. The Purnima has to occur before. So all those 999 BC, 998 BC, 9000 BC, 8000 BC, 900 BC, 800 BC, 700 BC, 600 BC, all those are wrong. They're wrong. It has to be after. So it has to be before 1200 BC, between 1200 to 2200 BC. That's all I'm trying to show here. We are not using it, but we are just showing you why and how that is occurring. And you can see that Vaishak Purnima also, I'm just pointing out over here. You can see that that is on April 2nd over there. March 31st is the vernal equinox. April 2nd is the Vaishak Purnima. So this criteria is obviously failed. So criteria is failed, right? So what did we talk about of the sequence of events? Winter solstice, lunar eclipse at nakshatra ruled by Aryaman, solar eclipse, and then Vaishak Purnima. And there are only 2 dates actually in which that sequence occurs. And in those 2 dates are 1510 BC and 1807 BC. And it will be astonish you to know that in 1807 BC, the eclipse is at lunar eclipse is at Purva Falguni. And in 1510 BC, it is Uttara Falguni, whose deity is Bhaga. So realistically, only 2 dates out of all those dates which we just showed you. There were a huge number of those dates which are here. 13 dates which we showed you. Out of that, only 2 dates actually fulfill the criteria. So I'm not using all these other things at the moment, but just the basic criteria. Only 2 dates. And those 2 dates, which I want to just show you, are basically over here. 1807 and 1510 BC. And I just want to show you also that the winter solstice in 1807 BC or minus 1806 is 4th, 5th January. And there we are talking about that particular set of events. which is winter solstice with a lunar eclipse at a nakshatra ruled by Aryaman, followed by solar eclipse, followed by Vaishakha Purnima, right? And you can see it very clearly over here. This is that winter solstice. And Jan 25th lunar eclipse is at Purva Falguni in 1807 BC. And I'm showing you lunar eclipse also over there, Jan 25th, which is a partial lunar eclipse. You can clearly see over here Jan 4th, and so winter solstice followed by that lunar eclipse, right? Then the solar eclipse, then the Vaishakha Purnima. And solar eclipse I'm showing you February 10th, 1807 BC. So what have I shown you so far? I've shown you winter solstice, 4th, 5th Jan, 1807 BC, followed by 25th of January, lunar eclipse, Purva Falguni, followed by solar eclipse, February 10th, 1807 BC. And now I'm giving you the date of Gautam Buddha's Nirvana, which is Vaishakha Purnima, 26-27 March 1807 BC, right? And all of them with screen caps, basically, right? So what is the meaning of this? So Aditya ji may want to come back in over here because I'll stop slide share in a moment. So what I'm trying to say over here is that when astronomy conclusively proves 1807 BCE to be the date of Buddha, how can Mahabharata ever be in 5.5K BCE? It is an impossibility. It has to be 1150 years around about that, before that, the Mahabharata. So the maximum Mahabharata will ever go to, because there is no epigraphic evidence of Buddha beyond 2200 BC, So this 2200 BC, 200 BC is a sort of a, foggy sort of area. But 1807 BC, a lot of epigraphic evidence, lot of it, right? So when epigraphic is pointing to that, you take 1150 years beyond that, you're coming to a 3K BCE date for Mahabharata war. So can you see how the internal evidence of Mahabharata war, the Kali Yuga evidence, the Gautam Buddha evidence, the Balram pilgrimage, everything is coming exactly perfectly together. It will cause a major earthquake in the circles, basically, which, in Western Indology circles, to see all this. But even the archaeology for Gautam Buddha, for his birth, that particular place of Lumbini, that once you say that you're finding soil, you're finding artifacts, etc., of 1600 BCE, plus or minus 200-300 years, that itself means that you have basically proved that Gautam Buddha was born there in around 1800 BC. Simple as that. I'll stop the screen share now, and I will come back over here.
No, actually, you are absolutely right there, Dr. Pandit, because it's very clearly mentioned in many texts, 1150, that Nanda comes.
Right.
And then, I had asked this question to many people. And then after that, it's probably the Shunga dynasty.
Right. Exactly.
And then in that Buddha appears.
Exactly. So it's just 1150 years or thereabouts, So Gautam Buddha will never be beyond that 1800 BC mark, right? He is in that 1800 BC so clearly. By the way, there is a lot of epigraphic evidence which have been pointed out by other people also. So the internal consistency is appearing even between astronomers. I think Vedveer Aryaji has pointed out very clearly about Gautam Buddha epigraphic evidence from 1800 BC. So now you can see astronomy pointed out by an astronomer like me. We have our differences in Mahabharata dating and all that. But can you see how clearly we are coming together now, even on different sides of, other arguments? We are coming so close. We are saying 1807 BC for Buddha Nirvana. And Mahabharata, therefore, can never cross 3100 BC, it is an impossibility. So all these other dates are finished because that 1150 year gap, that cannot be, wished away.
Right. And one more thing is, like, if we miss this important criteria of Buddha's birth, you cannot establish the right chronology. It's not possible.
Correct. So Buddha's birth will be approximately 80 years before that. Some point
Correct.
I will come out with the actual birth horoscope of Gautam Buddha also. Because a lot of people have asked that. And I'll come out with the birth horoscope of Yudhishthir Maharaj and a few of the other Pandavas. Arjun. I'll come out with Balrama's horoscope. Of course, Sri Krishna's horoscope. So what I'm trying to say, I mean, those are not really, from my point of view, mainly into astronomy. And I want to consider India's Jyotish tradition, of Pushya, basically, Nakshatra has to be the start, why it has to be the start, those sort of things. But also Kali Yuga. So all these things now internally we are proving that Mahabharata war will never extend into, even forget about 5561 BC and 5K BCE dates. Even 3.4K BCE is impossible for Mahabharata.
There was also a
3067 BCE.
There was also a historical competition between Buddhist historians because they wanted to prove that they are older and they are because some of them were competing with Hinduism to a large extent. But Dalai Lama quashed it. Dalai Lama said that the Buddha is a Vishnu incarnation. He accepts it. And so there's that competition also, and the Western scholars are always ignorant. And I can say it, so many people watching us. They're always ignorant because they try to impose, they are trying to prove their faith's identity. So they want to prove everybody else with respect to their dates, their Abrahamic faith dates. And like the Jesus birth, they want to confirm to everybody else. And where they also failed miserably. So Western scholars cannot be relied on in anything on these areas.
See, the main problem with Western Indology, if you want to call it that, the main problem is that they have failed to actually consider the evidence. Ajit Dovalji once made a very famous statement in one of my films. And he said that whenever you talk about any legal case, you always talk about the facts and see if the facts are fitting or not. If they don't fit, you discard, the case and you go back to the facts. Here, what is happening is people try to come and try and make a particular, like an idea, and they try to force fit their facts, basically whatever they are, to the idea. So then they will say, well, this doesn't fit, that doesn't fit, X fits, Y doesn't fit, but it doesn't fit, but you're still trying to force it into that. So that must never happen. And that is where the Western Indologists also, I think, have gone completely wrong. Because when you know that the epigraphic evidence is there for that 1807 BCE date, then how did you go and suddenly start making this 583 BCE date and 400 BCE date and all this? And that Lumbini radiocarbon thing, that is actually a huge problem now for all archaeologists and astronomers and everybody. Whoever has ever thought of this ludicrous date of 600 BCE, I think they have to all take a step back, take a breath, and sit down, meditate a little bit, and come to the right date of 1807 BCE for the Nirvana. I have lost your voice, I think.
Sir, you are blocked, I think.
Mute.
So
Muted.
So I wrote an article on Sathology.com on Buddha's dates, and your dates completely matched that. And we did independent. I wrote like 7 months ago, and
Right.
still, and based on my own research, and so your dates completely come in conformity, because it validates my faith also, that because my dates are purely from Shabda Pramana. I did not
Right.
do any other research like you have done astronomy, but it all matching. And also Vedveer Arya's dates also coming to the same thing. So I think we can conclusively reject the Western Indologist dates on Buddhas, because
And Mahabharata.
in
And on
Mahabharata,
Mahabharata.
also.
Because all the Western Indologists who are saying that, and by the way, some Indian scholars who are saying 1800 BCE for Mahabharata war, well, Now you're landing up in that peculiar situation. Can Yudhishthir, ever come after Buddha? I mean, it's becoming a joke that. So I'm afraid they have to now let go of their rigid positions and come to the 3K BCE date, 3067 BCE plus the Kali Yuga, So I think it is very difficult now for all the other astronomers.
See, the problem with the Western Indologists is it is so hard for them to justify the Earth started in 6,000 4,000 BC.
Right.
That's the whole point. And just the temples of India are older than that, so they cannot digest it. So the whole narrative that the Western scientists and KK Mohammed on my show said very important thing, that archaeology can maximum go 4 to 5,000 years back. So
Right.
archaeology is also not the right basis of understanding historical
Right.
events, and the only thing remains is astronomical, and the second thing which remains is the Shabda Pramana, the
Shabda Pramana and linguistic and the tradition, actual
linguistic
oral
tradition.
tradition of India.
Correct. The
Oral tradition.
Shruti and Smriti based traditions, they are the only proofs left. So in many ways, I think we have proved conclusively on all these shows that the Western Indologists have to now restart writing their books and teaching their people, because the worst thing is they teach all this nonsense to their people
In the textbooks, yeah. I mean,
in the
and
textbooks,
Indians, by the way, follow. Indians, by
and
the way,
Indians
I'm
follows.
afraid.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
afraid.
no, it's a vicious cycle.
we are
Like
we are we are close behind, and unfortunately, our textbooks are not changing.
it,
So the churning of people is coming out. So many of these youngsters, they come out and they always point out, oh, there's some Aryan invasion. Then there's Maha confusion. It takes them like 10 years, and then 10 years later they say, oh my God, we have been taught a lie. So
no, in American universities, I can say it's a competition with dumb, dumber, and dumbest. So and the entire media works on that. Who we can make dumber today. So if you watch CNN or Fox News, any of those channels, you are just putting your intellect in a washing machine and making it full speed dryer. So that's how it is. Like it completely dries out the essence of human life. And the another one which I see, and I many of them are watching today, and thank you for staying, despite I'm not saying what you like to hear. Uh, what the another aspect is that the textbooks, they create a hatred against anything ancient Hindu history, and
right.
like and one in every seventh doctor in the US is an Indian American, and
Right.
that too there is a lot of racism there, but that needs to be corrected there, because they push Indian doctors to only internal medicine, and but that uh, I have to point it out. But the other things is the all the NASA scientists, all the astronomical knowledge has come from India. They cannot ignore it. Ancient texts of India, like you said, vividly mentions all these star positions, when the Western people are not even aware of it. Just because they put a name on it, like in India you call it Save, but in American they call it American Save. Doesn't makes it American. It's a Save. But thank you, Manishji. It's as usual, very informative, very knowledgeable, and bringing out the facts. And Shivansh, thank you for joining also and contributing.
Yeah, today, Shivansh, we were actually going to talk on Bhishma Moksha, but last moment I took a decision that we'll talk on Gautam Buddha, because otherwise we can keep going on and on Mahabharata astronomy, and some people will become a bit, So Shivansh actually prepared Bhishma Moksha. Next time we'll do it.
And actually, the today's talk was very much enlightening. I think enlightening should be the correct word to use for today's session. So it was truly very enlightening.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining, and viewers who watched it right now live between me, Shivansh, and Dr. Manish Pandit. You can also search out his books at academia.edu and check out his books, which are available free to download. And we'll come back with one more interesting topic. So today we effectively debunk the Western Indologists' claim on Buddha's appearance date. Thank you. Namaskar.